when you can connect on an emotional level, when you can make people laugh, cry, sing, get upset, get angry, get behind on you on something, when you can make that real connection, then there's no competition with AI, right? And this is why building superfans is important too, calling back to my other book, because you make those connections, you make people feel like they're a part of something. AI makes us feel so disconnected, even though it's giving us all the information. Again, information is now plentiful. It's all going to be, we're all in the same playing field now as far as info is concerned. It's now how that information is wrapped and how you bring yourself into that.
Hi, love. This is Orion's World, previously known as Stellar Life Podcast. I'm Orion, transformational coach, hypnotherapy speaker, and a woman who turned deep pain into wild possibility. I overcame trauma, poverty, abuse, depression, infertility. Doctors gave me 5% chance of conceiving. But I rewrote my story. I created a new one, and the life they said was impossible. Now I travel the world. I'm married to the love of my life, and I am a mom to an amazing little boy. I'm also the founder of Orion's Method, where you connect within, reclaim your power, and manifest your dreams. Welcome to my world, Orion's World. We go deep, we get real, and we rise. This isn't just a podcast, it's an activation. Let's go. Hi, and welcome to the show. Today I have with me the pleasantly powerful Pat Flynn. Pat is a father, husband, and entrepreneur who lives and works in San Diego, California. His credits include keynote speaking, WSJ bestselling authorship, YouTuber with 2.1 million subscribers, and host of the Smart Passive Income and Ask Pat podcast. He's also an advisor to Kit Circle and several digital marketing companies. Today we talked about authenticity in marketing, creating mega successful YouTube channels, team and time management, and more. I hope you will enjoy this podcast as much as I did. It was phenomenal. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hey, Pat, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, my pleasure, Orion. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you've been extraordinary in the marketing world. You've done so much. You run so many companies. When you were a child, did you ever think this is who you're going to become?
No, definitely not. I wanted to be a baseball player and a sports person. I was pretty athletic. And when I was really little, I was pretty much bigger than most of my friends. And then all of a sudden in third grade, I stopped growing and everybody else kept growing. So my sports capabilities, at least relative to my competitors and teammates, started to decline. And so I kind of was just trying to be good at school. That's really what my goal was when I was little, and let opportunities happen. And then I wanted to become an architect as soon as I started thinking about college and what I wanted to do with my career. When I knew that sports wasn't going to be a thing, I decided that I wanted to go down into the world of architecture. I always loved to draw and build things, and everything from Lego to Lincoln Logs were a part of my childhood growing up. So it kind of made sense, and it was a career that I fell in love with. I got into it. I went to UC Berkeley and even graduated magna cum laude with a bachelor's degree in architecture. And I thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life until I wasn't able to anymore because of the recession in 2008. That's kind of when everything fell apart, but also it gave me an opportunity to build things back up in a different way.
Yeah. And how did you find your passion for marketing?
It came as a result of trying to just survive, really. I mean, I've always known about and I've always kind of understood marketing a little bit, as was trying to sell stuff to people. And that's kind of what I knew about it. But when it came to the point after getting laid off that I eventually had to do that on my own, I started to really question how to do it in a way that made me feel good. Because a lot of marketing that was taught, especially back then, was more about just treating your customers like a credit card number versus an actual human being. And I never felt good on the other end of that. So I decided to, when I became an entrepreneur, and long story short, I actually started a website to help architects pass an architectural exam. That was my first foray into online business, and it blew up. It did really well, and it did so not because I was good at marketing, but because I just knew exactly what my audience was going through, because I had just passed that exam myself. So in a way, that is the best marketing, when you can understand who it is that you're serving, right? I think it was Jay Abraham who said, if you can define the problem better than your target customer, they will automatically assume you have the solution. Well, I knew exactly who my customer was because I was my own customer. And I think this really came to light in 2009. So I launched my business in October of 2008. It did very well. I sold a study guide, and it was just a PDF file for $20, and it turned into a six-figure business from there. But in May of 2009, the United States Green Building Council, this is the company that like makes the questions for this exam that I was prepping people for, they came out with their own guide. And I thought I was done for. I started to question, why would people purchase something from me when they can literally buy the guide from the people writing the questions? And lo and behold, that was my most profitable month. And when I started asking questions to my customers, like, why did you buy from me? Or what was it about my stuff? And why didn't you buy from the other people? And they said, because I related to you, because I felt like you knew exactly where I was. These were the kinds of answers that I was getting. And that really changed my life. It helped me realize that the more I lean into who it is that I'm serving and actually just stepping forward and serving them first, I could always get something back in return. So my mantra has always become, ever since then, your earnings are a byproduct of how well you serve your audience. And I just kind of lean into that. I try to be an example of that, and I teach that to my students now as well.
But I think it's something more than that, because even with me, I saw you always from far away on stages and some on videos, and I was quite nervous. But the first 2 seconds I spoke with you, you just feel so like there's some kind of a kindness or generosity that is emanating from you. You do feel really, really genuine and relatable, and you feel like you care. You know how you judge people in 3 seconds? I can judge people in 2. So.
I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, and the first impression, and the 1,000 things you say before you even say a word, kind of thing. And I appreciate that a lot. I've heard that before. I've tried to distill why that's the case, and I feel like some of it's intentional, where I know that if I come into a room loud and aggressive, then I'm going to be perceived a certain way. But I mean, what was the first thing that I asked you before we got started? I said, tell me about who your audience is, because I want to make sure I serve them best, right? I'm literally talking about what I'm saying here. I'm walking the walk in real time. And it's because, again, I come from that place of, well, I'm here for you. I mean, you were so generous in asking, hey, we're going to talk about your book today. How do we set that up? And I said, let's not even worry about that. That'll come naturally. I'm here for you. And I think that, again, just showing up in that serve first kind of attitude has always been what I've done. And I guess that comes out both with the words that I say and maybe just kind of my tone and how I show up and body language. I don't know. It might be even deeper than that.
Yeah, and even with Smart Passive Income, you always shared your income with everybody. That's like being so transparent. How do you think it served you, and did it take something from you?
So to provide a little bit more color on what we're talking about here, in October of 2008, which was the first month that I sold my study guide, I decided that because a lot of people started to also ask me, how did you do that? Can you share with me how you became an entrepreneur kind of relatively quickly? I want to do the same thing. Everybody was struggling at the time, and they wanted to find their way out and a way to survive. So I was more than happy to share everything I was learning. And then I started to go, okay, well, if people really want to learn from me, I think the best way to do that is if I just share everything and became fully transparent. And that included sharing how much revenue I was making, how many customers I had, and every month doing that for years, showing the ups. It wasn't always up. Sometimes it was down, but being very open and transparent, not just with the numbers, but why the numbers happened. Here's what I fell short on. Here are the mistakes I made too. And that was very much inspired by, so I was a huge personal finance blog nerd. Remember when you would read blogs with an RSS feed reader, and you'd wake up in the morning and there'd be like 40 new articles from your favorite bloggers? So all my bloggers that I followed, from Get Rich Slowly to Simple Dollar, there was one in particular called mymoneyblog.com. And this person was very open with the stock trades that they made. They shared exactly how much they were spending and how much they were making, and also how much they were losing. And that made me trust that person that much more versus other people who were talking about retirement plans and funds and mutuals and all this kind of stuff, but weren't really showing what they were doing. They were just telling. So I really loved and admired this person for doing that. So I think I brought a lot of that over to the entrepreneurial space, because I was like, okay, if people aren't going to, and I wasn't asking for, I wasn't selling anything at this time, but I also knew how important it was to build trust. And so I just said, okay, I'm just going to fully show everything. And eventually that became a part of my, just the flavor of Smart Passive Income was, wow, he's sharing everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's fascinating because over time, you were able to see the sort of upward trends and the growth, and some of the, every once in a while there'd be a month where I'd have an astronomical increase in revenue. And it would be so fun to talk about how that happened. Hey, I released an audiobook to go with my architectural written book. And here is where I struggled with that. I talked about how I tried to record that myself at first. And then my mastermind group told me that that was silly, that you should hire a voiceover person, and how scared I was to invest $2,000 to do that, but how I was able to make that up in the first day. And all these lessons that I was learning in real time, I was able to share. And again, I think that did so much for quickly building that trust. It became, yes, a quick little carrot that was easy to share. Like, oh, dude, this guy, Pat Flynn, he's sharing his income. Cool. That was very easy to share and very interesting and different. But also, it just opened up the fact that I was just doing what I was doing. I wasn't trying to convince anybody of anything. It's just here I am, and here's what's happening. Now, over time, when it grew to 6 figures per month, which it did at one point, it actually started to work in the opposite direction. It started to disassociate myself with the level at where my audience was. It started to feel, oh, Pat's way beyond where I'm at now. He's doing all this advanced stuff. He's building a team. It's like, I can't afford a team yet. I'm a solopreneur. I am not ready for his stuff, or he is beyond my level now. So therefore, I'm going to move on to somebody else. So I started to, in a way, outgrow my audience by sharing those numbers over time. So eventually I had to make the decision to just stop doing that and instead focus on more campaign-based reporting. So one of the bigger ones that I did, and again, this was a way for me to reconnect with my audience, not by disassociating myself through the numbers, but rather saying, hey, here's a particular campaign. For example, I wrote a book called Will It Fly in 2015. And in 2017, I revealed all the numbers behind that. Here's how much it costs to put together. Here's how much I made from Amazon and the ebook. And here's how I also turned that into a lead generation magnet. So I actually included a companion course inside of that book to be able to capture those emails that Amazon doesn't give you. And that was very much not just like a numbers lesson for people, but also very, very strategic and tactical for people who are authors as well, copy and use as inspiration for their own stuff. So I've still found a way to kind of provide that information, be honest, but in a different way. I mean, what got you here won't get you there. You have to evolve with your audience as well. And I feel like I've been able to do that in a good way.
Is there a cost to being so honest and transparent online?
There's always a cost for everything. I think the cost of being honest far outweighs the cost of whatever anybody might do to manipulate things. I remember in 2012, I had partnered with a person who eventually came out and said, hey, by the way, this was publicly, he came out and shared that he was lying about all of his numbers. And this was a person that then I became associated with because I was working with him. We were about to come out with a product together. And then all of a sudden he just had this guilty conscience. And, you know, looking back, I'm grateful he did that because it could have gone deeper and it could have been worse. But I got pulled down with him at the time, even though I was honest the whole time and he wasn't, because I was associated with this person. It was very much a slap in the face to everybody who had been following me. And so, you know, as you continue to build trust, I think it's not necessarily a downside, but the more that you build trust, the more conscious you have to be about all the moves that you have to make. And that's not to say that, okay, you shouldn't be honest so that you can avoid that, but rather just with the growth and the audience that you connect with and the trust that they build with you over time, you have to be sure that you still remain true over time as the audience grows, as money comes in. I've seen it, not just with this person that I was working with, but other people who have become successful, who have completely changed who they are or their values have changed.
Yes, I've seen that too.
Yeah, it's very scary. And in many cases, they don't know they're doing that. It's just where the money and the fame has taken them. So I have purposefully put things in place to stop myself from doing that. Almost like, you know, on the road, there's these like, they call them rumble strips. When you're on the road and if you're like falling asleep, you kind of go over to the side and there's these bumps on the road that kind of wake you back up. I put those in my own life in different kinds of ways. My mastermind group, my wife, and even my audience. I tell my audience, if you see me veering off course, like slap me in the face so I can get back on. Like, please be honest with me as I go, because I don't want to fall into those traps because I've seen it before, like I said.
Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's not, they say that money is a magnifying glass for the person that you are. And that's true. And it's also, when people get a lot of money and fame, they can get confused. Not necessarily highlighting their bad qualities. It can be overwhelming, and it can. I guess it's good that you have that support team to keep you defaulting to generosity, like on your shirt.
It's true. I mean, I've seen, and it makes sense though when you are working so hard. Oftentimes, you're not getting the results you want, and all of a sudden, boom, you start to see some revenue come in. But more than that, you start to get other companies, other brands, other people, partnerships potentially who reach out to you, who tell you you're great, who want to give you attention, who want to share revenue with you, who want to get your face in front of their brand. It can be very easy to just get wrapped into that and fall into those traps. Not to say that those are bad; they can be good, but if you don't do your due diligence, you could connect with a company who might be in this for the wrong reasons. And you have to make sure you do your research and do your due diligence. It can be very easy to fall into those traps because we crave that success. I mean, we're working hard online so that we can generate revenue. And once it comes in, it's seemingly like more and more of the opportunities come by, but you got to be careful.
Yeah. How do you come up with the ideas for your books and your viral videos?
So the books have always come as a result of just what is my audience asking me the most about. It's always pressure tested. So my first book, called Let Go, was written in 2013 and was simply just a memoir of my experience getting laid off and the transition, mostly mentally, into entrepreneurship. And it's called Let Go because I was let go from my job, but I also had to let go of who I thought I was supposed to be.
Like when Dyer says, let go and let God.
Yeah. I mean, I had to, essentially, I was straddling two ladders. Even though I was building businesses, I was still going in for architecture interviews because I just, my body and mind were like, I had spent all this time going to school for architecture. Like, that's what I'm supposed to be. But eventually I had to let go of that in order to, in fact, grow as an entrepreneur. And a lot of times we're straddling a lot of things, and we're like, imagine trying to climb two ladders at once. You can't do that. Or it's very difficult at least. So that's let go. It was just a result of people more curious about my mental state in that transition. My next book was Will It Fly? How to Test Your Next Business Ideas So You Don't Waste Your Time and Money. I'd ran a survey to my audience in 2013, and I asked them, what's your number one challenge? What are your biggest brick walls that you're facing right now? This was a question inspired by Ryan Levesque, who wrote the book Ask. And a lot of questions came back of, how do I know I'm going down the right direction? I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my money. Like, I need to make sure this idea works first. And I'm so worried. I'm fearful of taking the wrong steps. So I wrote this book in response to the number one struggle that people had, which is just getting started and taking those first steps. So Will It Fly? Essentially, the tagline says it all: how to test your next business idea so you don't waste your time and money. It's about validating your ideas. It's about getting to the point where you can actually even pre-sell your thing before you create it, so that you know it's going to work and not doubt yourself, but actually use real evidence and proof that what you're doing is the right next step. And also the benefit of getting to a red light, not a green light, but a red light where something doesn't work. That's of benefit to you too, because you can learn and pivot around that. And that's important too. So this idea of like just taking action and letting the mistakes come into play to help guide your way, rather than like trying to wait for the perfect time or never taking any action at all. Superfans came about as a result of a presentation that I gave in 2015 at New Media Expo. So this was a presentation that I did that it's about converting your casual audience, people who find you for the first time, into raving fans. Because I had a lot of raving fans, and people were like, how do you have people who will like literally buy anything you talk about, no matter what it is? How do you have people who just like will fly over to see you if you just say you have an event? Like, can you teach me how to do
Charisma.
that? Right. Well, that's part of it. It's a process, right? You have to first provide some value to them, but then show them how they can be a part of a community, and you need to speak the same language. And this whole process, there's a framework that I have of building superfans. And it was this presentation that I continued to get hired to do. People who were in the audience wanted me to speak to their audiences at their events. And so I spoke about this 20 to 30 times. It became a very, very fine-tuned presentation that I could give right now if I needed to. And I had a friend of mine who said, Pat, you've done so well with this talk. It's just so obvious to me. It needs to be a book. This is Jay Bear. And I was like, yeah, book writing is hard. like my struggles with writing Will It Fly, I don't really want to go through that again. He's like, you have the outline already. It's your presentation. Just extrapolate that. And I was like, wow, you're actually right. So I had spent I wrote this during a month, November of 2018. This month is also known as NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writers Month. And this is a month that a lot of writers will just use as like a container to crank out a book. And I decided to do that myself in November of 2018. I finished on my birthday, December 6th, so I didn't completely finish in November. But I had the book done. And of course, it was sped up because I had already presented about this so often. And it was published in 2019 at one of my events, and it has done very well. It continues to actually excel out there in the world of entrepreneurship now because more and more people are seeing the importance of not just getting customers, but building fans. This idea of having real human connections now that lead to lifelong fans. This is how you future-proof your brand amongst the world of AI, is to build community and to build super fans. And so this book has been taking off without any additional help from my end. It's just percolating through the grapevine, and it's amazing to see that it was a little bit ahead of its time as well. I was a little prophetic in how important community and people and super fans are. So I'm proud of that book. And then this latest book, which is called Lean Learning. This is my first traditional published book. All those other books were self-published. And even though that's the case, one of them became a Wall Street Journal bestseller, Will It Fly, which is pretty amazing. But this book is one ring outside of the world of entrepreneurship. This is now into personal development and self-help because it's about learning. It does answer another question that people have given me, which is, how do I know who to learn from? There is so much information out there. I'm overwhelmed. I'm confused.
So much. It's crazy. And especially with AI now. You mentioned AI. You're like, oh, now I have to learn AI and I have to be really masterful at all the prompts and know exactly how to work with this fast-paced world. Yeah, how do you deal with all that?
Yeah, lean learning is interesting because before, information was valuable. There wasn't a lot of information. If you had information, you were smarter, you were more valuable, right? If you owned an Encyclopedia Britannica in your home, you were by default smarter because you had access to stuff that other people didn't, right? But today, we all have access to the same information. And not only that, we're now at like a buffet line of information, and we're filling our plates so high because we as humans we aren't evolved to consume this much information that's coming our way. And literally, we're being force-fed information too. Like, algorithms are putting stuff in our face that we didn't even know we needed. So we're, as a result of this, bloated with information. We're lethargic. We're confused, overwhelmed. And when we're trying to actually get stuff done and achieve something or learn something, it's so hard. It's actually harder than ever, even though all the information we need is there. So there are many principles in this book that I talk about, but these are all about speed running skill acquisition. And I wrote this book not just for my audience, but even for my kids. My son is 15 and my daughter's 12. She and he are going to enter their young adulthood in this world that is so hard to navigate with all this access to
So hard.
information that they have. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like for young kids now. Like us adults with our mature cognitive abilities, like we get lost in social media and FOMO and all that. So how do young kids can handle that? It's hard.
Exactly. So this book hopefully is at least a starting point for the world in the world of education and learning and just people wanting to succeed in general. One of the principles that I talk about in one of the bigger concepts is this idea of gathering just-in-time information versus just-in-case information. A lot of us consume just-in-case. However, there is so much out there. In fact, a lot of that is inspirational, but I call them junk sparks. They're inspirational, but they're pulling us away from the commitments that we've already had. And I think we've all felt this. We want to go here. We want to go there, the bright light syndrome or shiny object syndrome. And rather, and this, I learned this from my mentor, only allow yourself to consume and learn about things that are relevant to the next thing that's on your plate. And I think that because we're in this world now where there is plentiful information, we have to trust the idea that if we just learn about the next step, I mean, we want to still know where we want to go, right? We still need a North Star and a why. But in terms of the learning and the consumption that we do, having it be related to the next step in that process, knowing that on the next step after, you will find resources. Those resources are available. So let them be available when you need them. But for now, focus on this. This is what's going to help us move forward. Case in point, my book, the very first book that I wrote, which was the study guide for architecture. I didn't know how to format a book or sell it. I had never done that before. I felt like I needed all this. I was like, okay, maybe I should go to business school to do this, right? I fell into that trap that we all do, which is I need to learn all the things before I take that first action. But today, because all that information exists, we don't need to do that. I just needed to, number one, open up Microsoft Word and write the thing and learn how to do that. And that's all I needed to do. And guess what? After I finished that, and it was just like one giant essay looking thing, I was like, okay, now I need to learn how to format this. Okay, how do I do that? Well, let me go find the people who are experts at that. Let me watch the videos who are experts at that and then do that. Okay, cool. I've now formatted it. How do I sell this? Where do I go? Okay, let me find the people who've done that, right? Even to the point where I was at the point in the process to build a sales page. I was like, okay, what is the easiest way to do this? Well, there was a book called Moonlighting on the Internet, which has hundreds of pages on many different ways that you can make money online. But in the back of the book, there was a Mad Lib style sales page generator. And it's a physical book, so I had to copy. It wasn't online yet. But essentially, I could just take my product, insert it Mad Libs style into this kind of plug and play sales page. And that's what made my sales page. And it ended up making hundreds of thousands of dollars because I found it when I needed it, right? Versus, again, getting overwhelmed and confused by the entire process. And what's cool about this is with those people that you connect with, I call them champions, your mentors or peers, colleagues. Like it was a friend of mine who said, yeah, go check out this book. And at the end of this book, I remember the sales page thing. Cool. I just went right there. I didn't need to even explore very much because I had people I trusted that pointed me in the right direction. People who have gone down these paths before to tell me what to do. And so it's a counterintuitive way of learning. I mean, the tagline of this book is how to achieve more by learning less. The big idea here is just take action and you will learn more by the doing. You will be able to have that guide you because there are resources available for you when you need them. There's also some other principles like we entrepreneurs and marketers tend to especially overcomplicate things. We think that things have to be more difficult than they actually are. So there's a question I was asked by Tim Ferriss, who's a friend of mine. He is a big inspiration behind this book, but also was a big inspiration for me when I first started with his book, 4-Hour Workweek. And it's this question I call the keystone question. We will is the acronym. If this were easy, what would it look like? And I use that question to filter everything that I do now.
Wow, that's very deep. That's even spiritual. Like that goes everywhere in your life. Parenting, business.
100%. If this were easy, what would it look like? Let's go do that versus all the complicated stuff and just the way our brains are wired to try to feel like we have to fill in all those gaps with everything. Like if this were easy, what would it look like? So, an example of this recently is I invented something with my videographer. It's called the Switch Pod. I don't know if you know about this, but we have a physical product. We've never invented a physical product before, but this is a tripod. You can put your camera on top, and then when you just open it, it can turn into a tripod. The arms kind of fold into each other.
Can you put an iPhone on it?
You can put an iPhone, a DSLR. I've seen you can put 100 pounds of stuff on it. It's made out of metal. But of course, we'd never built anything like that before. We didn't know how to manufacture anything. We didn't know how to sell a physical product. We didn't have an audience for this. But if this were easy, what would it look like? Well, we would have a prototype. Okay, well, if it were easy to make a prototype, what would it look like? Well, we would just cut it out of cardboard. That's easy. I can do that right now. So that's exactly what we did. We just cut it out of cardboard and then literally went to events that had YouTubers and said, hey, if you had a tripod that kind of did this, like hold it, how would you feel? Like, would that be easy for you? What do you think about this? We just collected feedback. Oh, it needs to be taller. It needs to be, it has to do this. It has to hold a lot of heavy weight because the other ones are flimsy. Okay, cool. Like, thank you for giving us this information. Cool. Okay, from here, how do we make a working one? If this were easy, what would it look like? Let's ask around. Let's ask some people who've done this before. Oh yeah, 3D printing? Of course. I didn't even think of that. Cool. We 3D printed a version and then actually brought it back to these events and people who started to now see it and started to want to get behind it. And they're like, oh, Pat, this is cool. When it comes out, let me know. I'll promote it to my audience. Wow. We didn't even have to ask because we let them shape what it became. And so they got to actually follow along in the journey too. So the marketing was happening as it was unfolding. So again, we launched it on Kickstarter in February of 2019. We had never launched anything on Kickstarter before. If this were easy, what would it look like? Well, if it were easy, we wouldn't have a million different like pledge levels. We would just have like one or two. And let's go to somebody who's done it before. So we went to an event called Craft and Commerce where the keynote speakers were people who had recently sold a physical product on Kickstarter. And we just made sure to go ask them out to dinner or coffee and just ask them questions. What did you learn? What are the mistakes that you made? Cool. We don't have to do the research. Somebody's already done this process. So we launched the Switch Pod in February of 2019 on Kickstarter.
It looks really cool. I want it.
Thank you. I'd be happy to send you one, actually. And we had generated in 60 days $415,000, and was able to. It's now a product that's basically automated in the most sense by sales on Amazon and our website, and now it's just generating revenue for us. And again, we had never done that before, but we found, and I've learned through the lean learning process, that I've finally been able to distill the step-by-step framework to kind of incrementally make quick advances on things.
That's amazing. You really are leading with the audience in mind, and that's a big point. And so, but you do, you have the status, and you have the audience. What if somebody doesn't have that? How do they go and ask around or survey people if they're just beginning?
Again, I didn't have an audience for the video stuff before because I wasn't known for that. I just put myself in a room where those people would care no matter who I was, right? There was a good example of this. Actually, it relates to the SwitchPod too. I interviewed a friend of mine. His name is Glenn Alsop on my podcast, the Smart Passive Income podcast. And it is a very smart kid, very young. And I asked him, hey, how would you, if you were coming out with a product like I am right now, basically the same question. How would you get the attention of people who are influencers who could help amplify your product? Like, how would you do that if you had zero audience? And Glenn said, Pat, if I came to you and I said, I know somebody who's a friend with Casey Neistat, who was the top vlogger in the world, right? Very popular YouTuber. And if somebody random came up to me and said, hey, Pat, I know somebody who knows Casey Neistat, I might be able to get, him to maybe share the Switch Pod with him or something like that if you'd like. At that point, I don't care who you are, you're my best friend because you've related that to something that is of utmost importance to me right now. And that's how you do it. You figure out what is most important to the person who has that audience. And it doesn't matter who you are. You don't even need an audience if you understand what they might need help with and you have any value of any kind. A value doesn't just mean audience. Some of the most valuable people in my life have zero audience, right? But it's what matters to this person right now and what their goals are, what they're doing. I did the same thing. I built a relationship with somebody at Apple. He's no longer there, but somebody who worked at Apple Podcast because I knew he had a son that was a Star Wars fan. So I just sent him a really cool leather-bound Star Wars notebook. And he was like, what do you need, Pat? I got you. And I was able to get my podcast. This was back before there were even like 100,000 podcasts. So it was like really early days. I was pretty early on in the podcasting world back in 2010. But I was able to build a relationship through that, right? Because he was going to Disneyland. They were just opening some new Star Wars stuff. And, I was able to make that connection and just offer a little bit of extra attention and effort. That often is the answer, both for building audiences and for making partnerships and key connections, is just a little bit of time and attention go a very, very long way. And just like, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, like, just give a F, right? Like, just care a little bit. Like, that goes such a long way today. And I think people notice that now, both audiences and large and individuals.
Yeah. Do you think AI is going to compete with authors? Because you were talking about what's different is that I have like the human connection and the community. How do you see the future of that?
I mean, it's already competing. There are people who are trying to find ways to just push a button and write a book. And sure, again, information will be shared, but the human connection will never be replaced. And the way to combat that as a creator amongst these tools that are seemingly automating a lot of the creation is to tell better stories. Storytelling is going to be literally the most powerful skill that you could ever have. When you can connect on an emotional level, when you can make people laugh, cry, sing, get upset, get angry, get behind on you on something. When you can make that real connection, then there's no competition with AI, right? And this is why building superfans is important too, calling back to my other book, because you make those connections. You make people feel like they're a part of something. AI makes us feel so disconnected, even though it's giving us all the information. Again, information is now plentiful. It's all going to be, we're all in the same playing field now as far as info is concerned. It's now how that information is wrapped and how you bring yourself into that. I spoke at Craft and Commerce, which is Kits, formerly known as Convert Kits event. And there was a quote that I shared that really resonated with people there. This is a quote from my friend Jada Selner. And I remember just the audience like, yes, this is what it is. And there's no unique messages. There's only unique messengers.
I love that.
And the way that I demonstrated that on stage was I shared a clip of rapper Ludacris reading the words of the book Llama Llama Red Pajama. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Yes, I have actually.
But he read it and he rapped it. And you could just tell, even though it was the same words that is in that book that we've all read, you knew it was Ludacris because of the way he delivered it. And that's a musician doing it in his style, but we all have styles that we could offer as marketers as well, right? So mine, and you called out in the beginning, was that very authentic, transparent serve first. And I think that that's something everybody should absorb. But like putting more of you into your work is going to, again, allow for those connections to happen.
How can you step into your most unique style?
You need to create and find out where you love to play. And that's really what it is. I'm finding that my best content comes when I'm able to play and have fun. And when you find the fun, when you are enjoying the work that you're creating, your audience is going to enjoy consuming the work that you create. And it's been,
I love that,
by far the most satisfying thing. I mean, a lot of people who are watching or listening to this now might also know that I have a Pokemon YouTube channel that I started in 2021.
Yeah, you get like what, 300 million views or something crazy like that?
We have just crossed 1.5 million subscribers. This is in about 4 years on this channel where, again, I'm a 40-year-old man playing with cardboard with cartoons on them. But I'm creating stories, and they're not even stories just about Pokemon. Pokemon is the medium by which I'm telling these stories, but we get comments from people who are like, I don't even know what this guy's talking about, but I cannot stop watching his videos because we tell stories. We're doing challenges. We're meeting people and finding things that are rare and hard to find. And there's like a human component to that at the root level. And I'm having so much fun. And that's a reason why, for example, a couple weeks ago, we came out with our latest video. It already has 2 million views in 2 weeks.
How long does it take you to produce a video?
A long time.
And what's the process of coming, like thinking about it?
Yeah, so it starts with the title first. I think this is a really important strategy if you're creating content that is long form. Short form is different because short form, you don't even need to see the title, but it's the hook in the beginning, right? So I have a short form channel that's done really well too, that has over 1 billion views on YouTube in less than a year.
Wow,
this is a separate channel.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's incredible. But again, I learned my way into how to create shorts. In the first 30 days, I was getting 0 views. But again, by continually showing up and counting uploads, not likes, that's how you win. Counting uploads, committing to the process and the incremental improvements that you can make, a la Atomic Habits, and I talk about that in my book, Lean Learning, as well. You will eventually find your voice, you'll find your way, you'll find what your audience likes, and you can use data from these platforms to, again, move your way into successful stuff. So anyway, to go back to the long form videos, starting with title first, because if it's a title worth clicking on, then it's a video worth filming. If it's not, if I don't have a clickable title, then you can create the best video in the world. Nobody's going to watch it because you have to have a title thumbnail combo, a packaging around that video.
And how do you come up with that?
So you have a seed idea at first. For example, in my Pokemon channel, I had an idea to teach people how to package and ship their Pokemon cards, right? That's the seed idea. But if I came up with a video, how to package and ship your Pokemon cards, not a lot of people would necessarily click on that unless they were in the process. Well, first of all, they have to have Pokemon cards to want to ship, and then they have to want to ship in that moment. And even then, it's like maybe people already feel like they know how to do that and like they don't need that video. So it's not going to be seen by a lot of people. But that's the seed idea. Using that seed idea to then come up with 20 to 30 different options, whether that's on the fly or this is where I love AI. I love AI as a collaboration partner, a brainstorming partner. I can put that seed idea into ChatGPT and say, hey, this is my seed idea. How do I take this idea and turn it into something that's more wide reaching? How do I cast a wider net here or make it more interesting to a wider audience? So we came up with the idea after looking at a whole bunch, which was which shipping service damages my cards the most.
Oh, that's great.
Now it opens up a question that whether you were into shipping or not, you want to find out. And on the title, or excuse me, on the thumbnail, of course, there is a box with a huge dent on it. And then the UPS logo, USPS, and FedEx. And then the story now, yes, I can still teach how you should properly ship your Pokemon cards. I still teach that in this video. But we also now have some other questions that people need to stick around to get the answer to. Also, pulling inspiration from other channels amongst that. In that same video, around that time, there was a person who had a viral video by sending an air tag to North Korea so he could track what happens when it gets there. And that was very interesting. So I said, I'm inspired by that. Can we put an air tag in each of these packages for USPS, UPS, and FedEx and just kind of track along the way? That'll be a good way to kind of show people, or another thing that people can see which one gets there first. So all from the title, it turned into a completely different video that was more interesting. And that video almost has like 1 million views. Even though it's a utility video, it's still also in a way entertaining, even if you don't even care about Pokemon or shipping anything. You still want to know the answer to that.
How do you manage all those websites, the books, the ideas, the companies? How do you do all that?
One thing at a time. That's for sure. A lot of people see all these things and they're like, wow, like I have to also have a book and courses and a community and YouTube channel and shorts. And no, it's all done in sequence. My blog started in 2008. My YouTube channel for Pat Flynn started in 2009. The podcast started in 2010. It was only after I got to a point where I could understand that platform and begin to automate some of it, whether through tools or team, that then I can get time back to then put into something else. Because if I didn't do that, if I just added on to it, I mean, I only have so much energy and hours during the day, but I'm able to use that energy and hours to create something, to build in a way that then I can find either support with team or tools to then now remove me from that process to move on to something else. So I do have a team on the smart passive income side of things who is amazing, who's taking care of the community and making sure people get the results they want. And our results inside of SPI are incredible, the best in the industry. I would fight for that. And with the Pokemon stuff, I have a producer and an editor. So they're helping me with those components so that I can just get into the script writing and storytelling more. And I can just do more of what I want. It was my good buddy, Chris Ducker, who said, do what you do best and delegate the rest. And it took me a long time to learn that, Orion, because I was somebody who, when I started out, I wanted as much control over everything as possible, because I had once given up control to my architecture firm, who then let me go. I felt betrayed, even though it wasn't their fault. It was the economy. So I said, if I fail, I want it to be my own fault. So I'm going to do everything. And that was not the right way to go about it, because I did come to a point in 2012 where I was close to burning out because I was wearing all the hats. And it wasn't until Chris Ducker, a good friend of mine, really saw where I was heading down, a path that he had gone down before. He kind of really told me the truth about what was going to happen unless I hired people and got some help along the way. So I'm very...
And how big is your team?
On the Pat Flynn / SPI side of things, it's 8 full-time people who I've been working with for a long time, full benefits, everything. I'm so proud of the team we've built and the environment we've created there. And then on the Pokemon side of things, which is a completely different team, completely different business, there's just 3 of us and an additional editor. So it's not very many at all. And it's very lean.
Is this a physical or a virtual team?
These are all virtual teams that everybody's working remotely.
And how do you create environment in a virtual team? Like, how do you say, I'm very proud of the environment we created. What does that mean? That
means we give people agency to own the part of the business that they are responsible for. So rather than us going in and micromanaging, we say, hey, here's what you're responsible for. and we believe in you so much that we're going to let you run with this, and this, like, you're going to own this. And so when we win, we're going to celebrate with you, but also if it starts to fall short, we'll know that it's on you as well. And that creates an environment of ownership, and it feels like people are part of the business and not just like cogs in a machine that I built. And that is what has led to this incredible environment that we've had. Yes, we do meet in person once, sometimes twice a year, and that's important. That's a good recharge for us because it's important. But we also have meetings, and we at one point had too many meetings, so we've reduced that because meetings remove you from the work that you're supposed to do, and a lot of things can be solved without a meeting. But uh, that's essentially how we run, and we give people that ownership and agency to do what they do best.
Wow, you are so fascinating. There is so much to learn from you. It's incredible. I want to go back to the YouTube channel. If somebody was to want to open a YouTube channel today, what would you advise them?
I would advise you not to do it right away, but to rather get involved in a community first. That's what I did with the Pokemon stuff. Before I said, I'm going to create a YouTube channel, I got involved. Because when you get involved, you get invested in who it is that you're going to be serving, right? Which is, again, to my point, the most important thing. So in the Pokemon space, for example, I became a consumer. I became a moderator for certain channels. I got to know some of these people, and I got to talk to other people in this space to learn about them, because I didn't know anything about. I didn't grow up with Pokemon, but it was something my kids got me into in 2020 during the pandemic, and then we started playing together, and then they outgrew it, and I'm still here. But getting involved, getting to know who the people are, so that when I call this in my book, Will It Fly, creating your market map. Where are the places that these people go? So that's the first P. The second P are the people. Who are the people who have already been here, who have earned the trust, who people look up to in the space, the authorities, the influencers, if you want to call them that. Who are those people? And then the final P is product. What are the things that they're paying for? What are the prices of those things, right? When you just create a market map like that, you already start to see, just like a real map, the lay of the land, where people are and kind of what their specialties are. So again, for example, in the Pokemon space, I learned that there were a lot of creators who had their own specialties, right? There were people like SM Pratt, for example, and you don't need to know who that is, but what you need to know is he is an old school collector who has just such historical knowledge about the markets and about Pokemon cards that, like, I could never compete with that, right? Because that he kind of owns that. Then there are people who are into the more expensive trophy cards, exclusive rare cards that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars now, and they specialize in that. They know about those things. They know how to acquire them. They have some of them. I can't compete with that. There are people like PokeRev who just have massive collections, huge, and there would be no way that I could compete with that on, like, sharing my collection. But what could I bring to the table? Well, nobody was telling story or actually creating challenges around the world of Pokemon and actually going out there in real life and connecting with the community. Everybody was filming from their own homes, or as SM Pratt says, his grandma's basement, which I don't believe it is his grandma's basement, but that's just what he calls it. And I decided, okay, I'm going to go out there into the wild and actually interact with people and capture these stories. And that's kind of what led to a lot of the bigger videos that we've created today, where you see me interacting with people and doing trades and, like, helping kids out and helping vendors and whatnot in these storylines. And so if you're just getting started, get involved first. And then when you have the itch to create, just create. Don't worry about being perfect. And the more reps you can get, the better. Quantity is important early on so that you can learn what is working and what is not. A lot of people say, oh, quality is more important than quality. Don't sacrifice value, but quantity is more important up front. You can have bad camera. As long as you have good audio, you can have, like, not the best video quality and still tell a great story, right? Again, stories, I think the most important thing. Or just at least know what you're showing up for and what you want to try to hypothesize that you could become known for. And then just try those things. You may or may not like that, but it only takes taking action on that to learn whether or not it's something you should persist on or pivot on. There's a whole chapter in the book, Lean Learning, Persist or Pivot, that gives you some frameworks about how to think about those things and how they may or may not still align after you start. So anyway, just take action and understand that you have to be cringe before they binge. What I like to say.
I like that. Because it does seem like YouTube is becoming more professional. Like the cinematography, the editing, everything is becoming more high level. At least I think so. What do you think?
Yes, however, you see stories like, I don't know if you've heard of Leon the Lobster. It's this guy named Brady Brandwood who went to a grocery store with his iPhone, bought a grocery store lobster, and then raised it as a pet. And he did like that was 7 years ago. That video has 23 million views, and it was filmed on his iPhone, and it was not like professionally produced. But you know what it was? An intriguing story, a question that now we have to know about. And then now there's Leon the Lobster merch. There's Leon, unfortunately, just recently passed away, and there was like a memorial for him, the lobster. So it takes experimentation. That was not Brady's first video. In fact, if you go to his channel and look at his history, there's videos about all kinds of things. But once he landed on the lobster and that video took off, he continued to tell that story and share how Leon would molt and the food he was eating and like how he was doing, etc. And it took him years. I think it was MKBHD when I interviewed him. He's the world's most well-known YouTube tech reviewer, MKBHD, Marquez Brown Lee. He told me that his first 100 videos were for less than 100 subscribers. And now he's like 20 million subscribers. If you go back into Mr. Beast's archive, you'll see that he has hundreds of videos that were just random in the beginning, but they were all learning experiences, and they were for nobody. There was like no subscribers back then until he found his voice and found his way. And now, of course, he's just huge. But he kept going. That's the other thing. He kept going with it.
Yes. Pat, how do you manage your time? And how do you find time to think?
I give myself space and time to think. That's really important. I think literally putting those things in my calendar, like meditation or just like blocks of time just to decompress, oftentimes on walks or when I'm working out, is when a lot of those good ideas come out and I can just think and be. I also give myself space on a more monthly level, getting into nature, fishing, just escaping technology. That's become huge for me, the fishing, just to kind of get out there and not look at email or think about comments or anything like that. So that's really key. I treat time, I try to honor the time that I tell myself I'm going to do stuff. I'm very, very big on discipline when it comes to what you put in your calendar. There's a chapter in the book about time blocking, and we have probably all heard of time blocking before, right? Like I'm going to put 2 hours of time, a block of time in my calendar, a literal block in Google Calendar to do this thing. That's great. But I think of time blocking as more of a verb in the sense that it's not a block of time. It's you are literally blocking out everything else other than this thing you've committed to, right? Like you're creating a shield around these moments in the day where nothing else can come in except for that thing that you are going to hopefully hyper focus on or get into flow state with. And that's how I treat time. It's precious. And so there are so many things again out there that are trying to pull us away from deep learning and deep understanding and deep focus that we have to be careful, and protecting that time, creating a barrier around it is really key.
How do you create a quantum leap? You mentioned that in your book.
So a quantum leap, this is in the section of the book about accelerated learning. How can you quickly gain more new skills faster? There's a number of different ways to do that. A quantum leap is almost like something that feels like a leap of faith to be able to give yourself more space and time to do something. So the example I use in the book is my good friend Nathan Barry, who founded ConvertKit, which later became Kit. He, at the time when he launched ConvertKit, was also managing a book business and a design agency and all these other things. And he eventually, in order to make Kit work, he had to take that leap of faith and get rid of those profitable ventures to do what he really wanted to do, which was to focus on this software. And now it's a company that's making like $1 million a day or something like that. It's amazing because he took that quantum leap. Now, it doesn't always have to feel like a huge escape from something. There are other ways to have big moments of surges of results. And one of those ways is what I like to call the Power 10. So I used to row in college. I was on the Cal lightweight rowing team. And if you have ever been on one of those boats or have ever seen them, it's like those longer boats with like 8 people on them and the like tiny person at the front who's yelling commands. The way that you speed up your boat is not by just saying, go faster, come on guys, faster, faster. You create a contained moment of time to go all out for 10 strokes. That's what's called a power 10. So the coxswain in the front of the boat will say, okay, guys, we're going to do a power 10 in 3 stroke, 2 stroke, 1 stroke, go. And for the next 10 strokes, you just give it everything you have. You somehow, even though you're already going hard, you somehow muster up and find extra energy to put into it for just 10 strokes. And it's possible because it has an end. It's 10 strokes. You can do 10, strokes more at full power, and you'll see the boat just like fly during that time. So finding ways to bring power tens into our own life, and it might mean if you're a podcaster, for example, and you've been going weekly every week for the last year, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do a power 10 for my podcast. So for the week of May 7th, for the entire week, I'm going to do 1 episode per day just for that week. I'm going to put a little bit of additional energy and surge that into my podcast just for that week and a week alone. It's a contained amount of space, so you are able to do this, but it creates additional energy. It creates more momentum, literally.
It's a beautiful idea.
And you'll find that you'll have, you know what I mean? So it's like a lot of times we coast through and we start to build these machines of our business and marketing, and we have automations, and that's great. Sometimes you just need to go, okay, where can we insert a heightened moment of time of additional, it's like a hackathon, right? Think about coders and when they do hackathons, right? People are coding all the time, but when you say, hey, we're going to do a 24-hour hackathon where we're going to come up with new product ideas in 24 hours and literally get no sleep, like, cool. You put in that extra energy and effort, and there's like that time frame, a start date and end date, and so many beautiful, amazing things have come out as a result of just a contained period of heightened momentum and pressure. And so that's just an example of one way that you can accelerate your learning into something. Like I can imagine a YouTuber who, like a kid who's like, okay, I'm trying to learn how to play piano, and guess what? I'm going to live stream myself playing piano for 10 hours straight, like tomorrow. And that creates what I like to call a voluntary force function, which means you've set this deadline that now, people are expecting you to show up for. Which is like a great action step in and of itself, like putting on the calendar when something's going to happen and then showing up with heightened stake and pressure. But number 2, it's like you're going to be there for 10 hours and people are going to be watching, and that's your own version of a hackathon for piano, and you're just going to sit there and really do it, and then it ends, and you'll probably be that much more ahead versus if you just dedicated 1 hour a day for 10 days. And not doing that too often is key too, right? If you were rowing on a boat and you were like doing a power 1000, I mean, you're gonna burn out, right? So it's this, again, short bursts of momentum.
Makes a lot of sense. It's really, really great. Because most of the time people try to finish projects and they don't, even like psychologically, just to do this 10 track. That's amazing. So thank you so much. If you want to share anything, last sentence with the audience, please do. And where can people find you, get your book, and all that good stuff?
Thank you so much, Orion, and thank you to Stefan. I hope he gets better soon. I'm sure he will be by the time this episode goes out.
Yes,
so I appreciate it. Leanlearningbook.com is where you can go pre-order the book. If you're one of the first to pre-order, there's some bonuses there as well at, again, leanlearningbook.com. Deep Pocket Monster is the Pokemon channel. I know a lot of people, when I talk about that, are very curious about that. So Deep Pocket Monster, and really just Pat Flynn on all social media channels as well. So again, I appreciate your time. And just a quick word for everybody out there before I leave. It's like the mistakes are important, right? You got to take action and understand that we are no longer living in a world where if you like fail, that means you don't get to pass the grade. It means you just haven't found the way yet. And there are plenty of resources out there available for you to help you find your way through anything. And, out there, connect with people and fail fast. That's what I like to say.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Appreciate you. Thank you, Pat Flynn. Bye.